Hey people, it's Naz talking, and this is from CNN. The African community in Guangzhou is on edge after widespread accounts were shared on social media of people being left homeless this week as China's warnings against imported coronavirus cases stoke anti-foreigner sentiment. In the southern Chinese city, Africans have been evicted from their homes by landlords and turned away from hotels, despite many claiming to have no recent travel history or a known contact with COVID-19 patients. CNN interviewed more than 2 dozen Africans living in Guangzhou, many of whom told the same experience, being left without a home, being subject to random testing for COVID-19, and being quarantined for 14 days in their homes, despite having no symptoms or contact with known patients. Health authorities in Guangdong Province and the Guangzhou Public Security Bureau did not respond to CNN's request for comment. The move comes amid heightened media coverage of the so-called second wave of coronavirus, emanating from infections outside of China. Earlier this week, Chinese President Xi Jinping urged authorities to carefully watch for imported cases from other countries, state news agency Xinhua reported. One aspect of the data has received relatively less public attention. On March 26, Vice Minister of Foreign Affairs Lao Zhaohui said 90% of China's imported cases held Chinese passports. On Thursday afternoon, China's Foreign Ministry spokesman Zhao Lijin, since the beginning of the coronavirus outbreak, China and African countries have always supported each other and have always fought against the virus jointly. I would like to emphasize the Chinese government treats all foreigners in China equally, opposes any differentiated practices targeted at specific groups of people, and has zero tolerance for discriminatory words and actions. Guangzhou has long had the largest African community in China, because many Africans in the city have short-term business visas to travel into China several times a year, making it difficult to calculate the size of the African population of the city. But in 2017, approximately 320,000 Africans entered or left China through Guangzhou, according to Xinhua. African residents say local hostility to their presence is nothing new, but when coronavirus cases emerged in the African community this month, it served to amplify existing tensions. A report on April 4th alleged that a Nigerian national with COVID-19 had attacked a Chinese nurse who tried to stop him leaving an isolation ward at a Guangzhou hospital. The report was widely shared on social media, and local Africans CNN spoke to say a racist backlash against the African community followed. Then on April 7th, Guangzhou authorities said 5 Nigerians had tested positive for COVID-19. Fearing a cluster among the African community, Guangzhou authorities upgraded the risk level of Yanbeiyun, the area home to these 2 African enclaves, from low to medium. State-owned Global Times reported. The local government Tuesday reported 111 imported cases of COVID-19 in Guangzhou, with 28 patients from the UK and 18 from the US. In interviews with CNN, American and British nationals in Guangzhou said they had not heard reports of forced testings, home evictions, and additional quarantine measures being imposed on members of their communities. On Saturday, however, the U.S. consulate in Guangzhou warned African Americans to avoid travel to the city. In response to an increase in COVID-19, officials in the Guangzhou metropolitan area escalated scrutiny of foreign nationals. The consulate said in a statement, as part of this campaign, police ordered bars and restaurants not to serve clients who appear to be of African origin. Moreover, local officials launched a round of mandatory tests for COVID-19, followed by mandatory self-quarantine for anyone with African contacts, regardless of recent travel history or previous quarantine completion. African Americans have also reported that some business and hotels refused to do business with them. On March 21st, Nigerian goods trader Chuk, who did not want to use his full name for fear of government reprisals, flew back to Guangzhou, his home since 2009. With China's coronavirus cases seemingly under control, he wanted to resume his trading business, which had been stymied by the pandemic. The area around Guangzhou is a manufacturing heartland where many Africans buy cheap goods to sell back home. Chuk returned several days before China closed its borders to most foreign nationals, but upon arrival he said he was told that he needed to enter government quarantine at a hotel for 2 weeks. As a trader, Chuk travels frequently and is accustomed to staying in hotels during his time in China. On Tuesday, Chuk says that when he was released, along with 15 other Africans with a clean bill of health, they effectively became homeless. We went to the hotel with a certificate, but we were rejected, he said. The group went to the police station to report that the hotels were refusing to let Africans stay, but they refused to talk to us. The Guangzhou Public Security Bureau, which oversees the police, did not respond to CNN's request for comment about events described by anyone CNN interviewed. Chuk says he had no choice but to sleep rough for 2 nights before finding a friend's couch to crash on. Rain fell that day and the next day, and we were all drenched and our belongings soaked, he said. His story was echoed by others who spoke to CNN. Earlier this week, images began circulating online of rows of Africans sleeping on the streets of Guangzhou beside their luggage, having been evicted from their apartments or turned away from hotels. Other videos show police harassing Africans on the street. On Thursday, CNN called 12 hotels in Guangzhou wanting to book a room for an African guest and was informed by 10 that they would not be accepting foreign guests anymore. Meanwhile, multiple Africans CNN spoke to reported being abruptly evicted from their homes. No one had evidence of a government directive asking landlords or hotels to turn away or reject foreigners. Rather, they say those appear to be decisions made by private individuals and business owners. On Wednesday, Nigerian trader Nonso, whose name has been changed to protect his identity due to fear of government reprisals, says he and his girlfriend received a message from their landlord at 7 p.m. on WeChat, a Chinese messaging app, saying that they needed to vacate their flat by 8 p.m. I told him I can't vacate in 1 hour, said Nonso, who pays 1,500 yuan, $212 a month for his apartment in the Nanhai on the outskirts of Guangzhou and has lived in China for 3 years. At 10 p.m., he says his landlord came to the flat and cut off the electricity and water supply. I asked them, what did I do? I paid rent until September with 2 months' deposit. They didn't give me any reason, he said. Nonso called the police, who let them remain in the apartment for the night. But in the morning, Nonso says the landlord returned with a different officer who said he had to leave. Nonso says he struggled to find a new apartment to rent. We have contacted a lot of agents. None of them were leasing to black foreigners, he said. Chris Leslie, also from Nigeria, said he was abruptly evicted from his Guangzhou apartment on Thursday despite not defaulting on his rent and having a valid contract. He had nowhere to sleep that night. I will just hang out outside, he said. It's so pathetic in a country where people don't accept you and they criticize. This is just a bitter humiliation. The most important thing is having somewhere to sleep. On Thursday, several volunteer groups emerged on WeChat, mostly populated by scores of foreigners rallying around the displaced Africans, organizing food, masks, and sanitation products for those left wandering the streets of Guangzhou out of bed. Katie Smith, an American living in Guangzhou with her Moroccan boyfriend, made 2 deliveries to newly homeless Africans on Thursday. Her name had been changed to protect her identity, as she too fears reprisals from local authorities. As we drove down the street, we saw a lot of Africans walking around, said Smith. The police came and said they couldn't stay there. They're not letting them gather in groups, so they just walk up and down the streets with nowhere to go. Videos filmed by a member of one of the WeChat volunteer groups seen by CNN show police trying to prevent volunteers from helping the Africans. As a black person living in China right now, it's pretty scary, said one volunteer who didn't want their name to be reported for similar reasons, said via WeChat. Don't use the African black community as a scapegoat for the virus. Well, I'm reaching my capacity where I can record, so I'm going to just make a second part where I'll finish the article. I'll leave the article in the description of this one if you just want to read that. Anyway, please comment, rate, share, and subscribe. Peace.